the problem with plastics is huge for fertility patients, and we think it's the sort of this invisible thing that has not been dealt with. And doing a massive deep dive in the research, I'm just going to tell you, there's not a lot of research to guide us when we're trying to get women pregnant, and couples pregnant. There's just not a lot of really good research. We're going to go through what we know from research, and most of that is association. Like, this is associated with problems. What there's like hardly anything on is like what to do, as far as detoxing body, how do we support your reproductive organs? But Hillary and I have a lot of experience with that.
Opinions,
Opinion. Well, I think we have, based
experience.
on experience and what we know and other research, we're applying that to our clients. So I think we have really good leads on that, but I don't think you're going to find that in many other places. So
Well,
we
and I think
great
what Kara knows and we
idea.
both know to be true is that what's happening in the research doesn't actually show up in practice. Like your OB, it may never show up in their office where somebody's communicating this info to you. So this is obviously like we need to be on the forefront of it because we're seeing such changing rates of fertility and that people at even, even a younger age are needing a lot of cycle support, whether they have PCOS or endo, those things are rising. Hashimoto's is rising. So all the like walks to your fertility are rising even in younger people. So this is just something that we see. Like this is one of the things that's really changed in our society within 10 years, just the environmental toxicants and the microplastics. It's really interesting. So go for it, Kara.
Um, and so at first, the basic thing is that we knew these things were endocrine disruptors. So they were messing with our endocrine systems, binding to cells, blocking binding certain cells. So they were changing our hormone concentrations. And that was an issue, and changing how our hormones work in our bodies. And so these plastics, right? 99% of plastic is made from fossil fuels. And they're kind of hard to break down, right? They will break down into smaller and smaller and smaller molecules, but those don't go away so easily. They're not like biodegradable, right? They're out there. They're in the water, they're in the soil, they're in our air, they're all over us, they're in us. And we're going to go through that. But it's really interesting that now we talk about microplastics. So like back in 1996, when I saw that first article about this, that wasn't even a word. Microplastic wasn't even like a thing people talked about. Now we talk about nanoplastics. So microplastics are 100 nms and nanoplastics are less than 100 nms. So that's when we're talking about microplastics or nanoplastics. And people in this field are like MPs or NPs. That's how they talk about it, because it's annoying to say the word over and over again. So anyway, the point being that the chemicals can leach into our soil, our food, our water, and we can get exposed that way. So picture a plastic water bottle, right? You have the water bottle, chemicals go in there. Sometimes it's phthalates. Phthalates make the water bottle a little bit squishier. And then there's these plastic chemicals and we ingest them. So that's very obvious way we get them, okay? Very, very obvious. But I don't think it's so obvious that they're in all of our cells. Even when you do a cellular division, I guess these little tiny plastic particles also go into two. Like if one cell divides into two, they're in both of those cells. So that's interesting to note from the research. And also that these tiny little plastic molecules are found in our arteries. So that is a big deal. So they looked at like the plaque in our arteries, and that makes me think about you all trying to get pregnant, because we're all about circulation and anti-inflammatory to try to get to ovaries and uterus and all your reproductive organs. And so if we have these plastics there, like I can't say, oh, they caused the plaque. Like I can't say that at all, but they're associated, like they're there. Okay. They're also found in your ovaries, and we do have a little bit more on what's going on in your ovaries. They're found in the placenta and in the amniotic fluid. So that's a big deal for us. So I'm not telling you to scare you. We're not about that at all. We like information. We think knowledge is power, because then we can make these choices based off it. So we're setting this groundwork so that we can share with you some of the ideas Hillary and I have come up with on how to protect yourself from these chemicals and how to potentially detox them out. So that's what our whole goal is here, is so you know, not so you freak out, because there's no way to avoid these. I'm just going to say it right here. We reduce our exposure, but you cannot get rid of them. And so that is not the goal for you all. But there's some real things you can do in your households to make this better, right, Hillary? Like, that's what we want, is like real things you can do, not like, oh, this is just like overwhelming if you take it that way.
And the flow out the body, right? Like what are
Mhm.
the things that encourage the continuous flow out of your body? So like we can't control the exposure, but we can control the detoxification. So
Right. And we have really good things like that because you've been running detoxes for eons and eons, and we know how to generally detox. So for our, Hillary and I run a bunch of detoxes a year, and we're doing an anti-inflammatory one. So we sat and really looked at this research and thought, like, okay, how can we shift this to think about how to help detoxing these microplastics and nanoplastics? Because in reality, here's what they do in your cells. They don't go in there and just endocrine disrupt. That's not the only thing that's going on. They cause real inflammation, like real inflammation. And here's something I think you'll all be interested in, is that they did some research studies, and they're doing these on rats because they're not going to like do this on human beings, but they're doing this on rats. And they're looking and seeing, okay, these microplastics end up in the ovaries, which they do. And what happens there? And you get this whole cascade of all this inflammation, and we need inflammation in our body to heal anything. It's a good thing, but too much is too much. And once it turns on, it tends to turn into a fire that we're trying to put out. Um, and then you get more fibrosis in your arteries. So that is like a scar tissue.
and
So
that is the part that I think is kind of the new, really what we're looking at and how we can approach this differently. And like Kara said before, for fertility, this really, really matters because we're
Mhm.
really talking about because you've heard about circulation being so important, but so if there's the follicular, the the ovaries, why am I saying this wrong? Follicular tubes. What's wrong with me? Fallopian tubes. Oh my.
Fallopian tubes.
These things are, Kara always says it's like miraculous that conception happens in anybody because everything's kind of so micro.
Mhm.
And so we want to make sure that that there's nothing gumming up your circulation.
Can I show you some like dorky images from
Yes,
the
I
research?
love the images.
Okay, let's look. Because this one I think is just makes our point, right? I mean, here you are, you're the pregnant woman, but it just shows like where you're getting these. Can you all see this? And it's okay. Okay. Um, so I really like to show this because you can see like where these plastics are made. We get some pollution into the air, we get it in the water, we have plastic products that have it. And we have these primary and secondary microplastics or nanoplastics. So these tiny little plastic molecules. And then there's other contaminants. Okay, this is not good, but we inhale them. Like you actually inhale them. At my office, we open the supplement packs, and they're often packed in plastic to like hold all the supplement bottles together. And there is a smell. And I know that that is not good for you. So we unpack them right next to an air filter, and we cut them open and like leave and let it get sucked in, because I can smell that smell, because I have horrendous detox pathways, and maybe that's good for me because I can like smell everything. I have like a crazy sense of smell. And so I feel like that is an area, because the bottles are wrapped in these plastic like shrink wrap stuff, that once we cut it, we smell it. You can smell it. I'm inhaling it if I'm opening up those bottles. But you can see how, it's in everything we're kind of eating. And then you can see that there's skin contact, and they're talking about placental transfer here. So this is like where we're going. We just want to say there's real science on this. But over here on the right-hand side is like, that's your brain at the top. And that's where your like FSH and LH are made. And you can see that that's where your hormones are made, right? So men's testosterone can be dumped from this kind of toxicity, and our estrogen, progesterone too can really be dumped by this. So, and we have some good research leads on that actually happening and that association happening. But here's where it is, guys. It's this oxidative stress here and fibrosis. That word fibrosis literally means those cells are dead and it's a scar. So we really want to like affect change there. And that's what we really want, that's what we want for you. So that's what I'm going to do some ideas on. And then I'm going to share one more super, super darky thing from the research, just because I think it's important to see
No,
this
I mean,
real. It's
it's
not
so
theoretical,
helpful. Yeah.
right? Okay, so
Yeah.
this one's just super quick. Bear with me because I get excited about this stuff. Okay, so you can see we're talking about that, we're talking about gonads essentially here, right? That's the germ and somatic cells. So this is for men and women, that microplastics and nanoplastics and these other toxins, because they never come alone, right? It's like you have BPA with it, you have the phthalates with it, you have all these other chemicals with them too. So they hit your germ cells, which yours are your oocytes, ladies out here. Those are our like little tiny follicles that are going to get ready to turn into eggs in the ovaries. So they've looked at this on testes too. So, and what they're saying is we just get reactive oxygen chemicals, and that means that it's just tons of oxidative stress. We can get DNA damage, we can get cell death, we can get all this stuff. And then over on the right, you can see the hormone disruption, embryonic like development disturbance. So, I mean, these are the things that I can find in the research when trying to talk to you all about this. Now, the really cool thing is that now we know about this. So let's like, I know it's invisible. We don't see it happening. We don't, we're not like saying like, oh, this is the cause of your problems getting pregnant or problems with many miscarriages or whatever it is, but it's part of the picture for us all. And we really want to take it into account. So we have some good strategies, right, Hillary? Like this is something where we often will be talking to women and figure something out. I recently had a patient who only drinks from Poland Springs water bottles. And I'm telling you, this is what she reported. She only drinks for Poland Springs water. She doesn't like the taste of tap water. And she doesn't like, if she goes to a restaurant, even she says the water kind of gives her a stomach ache. It makes her sick. So she really does only drink bottled water. And especially it's only Poland Springs is the thing she's discovered that she likes. And she just had a really intense endometriosis stage 4 surgery. And so to me, if I look at what's in that, it's endocrine disrupting chemicals, it's microplastics, it's these things we're trying to avoid. And can I say to you all, like, that's definitely her problem? No, I can't say that, of course, but it's associated. And when I look up, like, what is in Poland Springs water, like, there's a class action suit about this and the endocrine disrupting chemicals in that water. Like,
Hmm.
because, when she's in my office, I like was looking up, like, can I really say this to her? Because, she's attached to her Poland Springs. And I was like, can we try something else? Can we do something else? So for her, she's drinking out of the soft water bottles. Here's my stepwise plan because she's saying, water makes me feel sick, like regular water. So I actually put her to the harder blue plastic bottles first to eventually get her off, right? Because it's like we have to be reasonable about how we work with people. So it is the softer plastic bottles are the worst. The single-use disposables are the worst. And those big 5-gallon jugs, that in my mind is safer for her. So we're on that step and we're going to get her off of that too. So anyway, just like sharing a story about a real person. Hillary and I have also been noticing, and you can talk about this. I'm going to pass this to you, Hillary, the dumping levels of testosterone. So is this a real thing or are we just over speaking?
For men and for women.
Yeah.
And yes, we test a lot of men for their testosterone levels. One
Mhm.
of the tricky things about fertility is that we can't give them testosterone. So older men can take testosterone and be on testosterone replacement therapy, but on a fertility journey, men can't. But it's important for their overall health. It's important for their spermatogenesis. It's important for them in general. And it over time, we've just seen a trend that the testosterone levels are dumping. Is it stress hormones, COVID? Yes, some of that, but I think that there is an environmental toxicant that we're seeing for them. It's kind of converting them to be more estrogenic, or it's holding their testosterone and not allowing as much free testosterone. That's a really common pattern too, where their testosterone looks okay, but it's not as bioavailable. So like the hormone pathways for both men and women, for women too, we don't want too much testosterone, but women should have some amount of free testosterone working for them, but that, and it's a sign as women's testosterone, sorry, the dinging, I turned it off. If the women's testosterone is low or dumping, that it again is like, oh, speaks to ovarian reserve and ovarian quality. Like, no, we don't want to be PCO. You guys are here in your mind that testosterone's bad, and like anything, it's just all these hormones are the just right amount. But
So
when
there was,
people in general are becoming more estrogenic, and and we're losing some of the function of all the hormones.
yeah, so there was just a 2024 research article that just looked at everything out there and tried to summarize it. So I just want to say for male, this is directly from the article. For males, the damage of microplastics consists of abnormal testicular and sperm structure. That's not going to help us get pregnant, right? Decreased sperm vitality and endocrine disruption, which are caused by oxidative stress, inflammation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a really good thing to note too. So just looking at your household and can I change my plastic exposure in my house? My answer is yes. Every single person can change their plastic exposure in their house. And the first thing is to see like, where is it? Where am I getting this stuff? So I think a lot of our skincare products in plastic bottles, especially if we have them like in our showers and things like that, is one place to really look at it and think about it. I know I like to go to the beach. I really like to go to the beach. And when I go, I actually started, this is like one of the dorkiest things I'm sharing with you. I started putting an ice pack. I have this bag of all the sunblock because I require a lot of sunblock. Anyway, I started, my
She's
whole
very well
goal,
dressed at the beach. She's
very well covered
covered.
at the beach. Yeah. My goal at the beach is not to have anyone know I went to the beach. Like I need to just be the same color when I leave the beach. Like that's my whole goal. So anyway, I started putting an ice pack, one of those just basic ice packs for like, your kid falls and you have an ice pack in your freezer for this all the time. I started popping it in my bag with my sunblock and I think it really does help honestly because those plastic bottles that my sunblock is in is those chemicals are going to leach into my sunblock and I'm like applying it to everyone like every 90 minutes or whatever it is. So that's one area where I think we could do better is not letting those bottles get hot. So that's something I've just started to do. I know that's excessive, but I do see now in my shower, we have glass bottles, we have metal bottles for the shampoo. Hillary, I saw at your house, you had that same shampoo. I like that shampoo.
That
It
rosemary shampoo.
smells so good. I
My
really like
daughter, I gave it to my
it.
daughter for Christmas in her stocking, and she wasn't impressed. So
Oh, really?
she
I like
left
the
it
smell of it.
behind.
Well, there you go. You got new shampoo and conditioner. But anyway, you can buy those things. I think that's a really, really key place to look. If you have little ones, now we're having to have this conversation with our patients, right? If you have little people, one of the biggest ways they get plastic exposure is by their socks, and the research is there on that. And so looking for all cotton socks or all wool socks is a really great thing to do. I know I used to have these awesome like crocheted little slippers that so it was like wool, really nice natural wool crochet. And then the bottom was actually sheepskin with the fuzzy little like, oh, it was so nice. So when they started walking, they had those. Those were amazing. They were made in Canada. I don't know if you can find those. But if you can find natural fiber clothing, you're going to be way better off because those socks that are stretchy, it all has plastic in it to make it that way. Our exercise clothing is really bad this way. And I will tell you to find 100% organic cotton. For me, scrubs, I like to wear scrubs when I'm doing acupuncture at the clinic. I run around in scrubs. Awesome. They're like glorified pajamas. I cannot find them 100%
And
organic.
I think that, I mean, this has gotten a lot of media.
Yeah.
But the truth is a lot of the fast fashion or um the bralettes,
Hmm.
um and some of the things that are using a lot of the plastics, the sports bras that are like lower quality, that they're breaking down. The bralettes, I think, got a lot of negative media, especially for women when they're sweating. And when you're
Yes.
sweating, you're breaking down the material, and that material is putting you at risk. So, and same as like underwear, that you want to try to use things that don't have it's those like kind of plasticky bands that are very poorly made.
And it's very hard. So if you look like I want 100% cotton underwear, it's like hard to find, but you can find it. It just takes a minute to find. You know, it's like there's a company in Germany, there's a company in Italy that you'll find certain things like this that are the kind you like. But those things are important, I think, to start really looking at, you know, what is up against my body all the time. Buying food is always a challenge. So, you know, using bulk and bringing your own containers might be really helpful. Some of it's expensive. Yeah, I totally agree with that. The yoga clothing in particular is an area that I struggle with, but I'll tell you where I don't struggle. It's in my kitchen. So let's go through the kitchen stuff, right, Hill? This is
Yes.
like an area we've got down. So you look in your dishwasher and you make sure there is no plastic going in that thing. Not a plastic handle, not a piece of a plastic on a handle, no plastic. So just really look at that because that gets super hot. So that's the first place to look. People are always like, but my dishwasher is partly made of plastic. Now there's nothing we can do about that. So we're not going to worry about it, right? We're just not even gonna worry about it. We're gonna do the things we can take action on. Look at your pans. You definitely don't want any pans that have those coats. It has to be all clean, all natural. The pan, stainless steel is awesome. Hillary's big into the cast iron, and that's awesome. So it's those kind of pans is what you want, but really look for like the handles of things, the spatula you use, you know, it's always like it's like the handle of the knife is the problem. You know, it's that kind of thing. So make sure you check all that, do like an inventory. The containers that we want, you know, we really want to use stainless steel or glass for our containers. I think silicone is okay from what I've done on like deep dive research for like if you need a spatula or you need sometimes silicone is something you do want to use in cooking. That's a good thing to look at. Ceramic mugs are perfect and great. We just want to make sure that the glaze they use is super safe. So make sure it says like food safe. Some of these things that people end up using are actually decorative. So just make sure that it's like food safe. I also like to see like dishwasher safe because then I know that those things aren't leaching out. If your friend is in a pottery class and like made you something, sometimes it's a little bit questionable. Like if they did like a nice Japanese glaze and it has some metals in it and it looks at all shiny like that, just ask, you know, what is this glaze and is it food safe? It's always good to check that. We've just caught this in a few patients, so I'm sharing it for you. Um,
I
so
know. I love how I've been using literally Japanese um, stuff for years since I came back from Japan. And I did ask the person who made my pottery in Japan. I mean, I knew the person and they were so cute. And I asked them, like, does this have a glaze, like a weird lead glaze? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I'm sure that they just did not understand. Yeah.
some of the
So
traditional
it's like always good for us to like,
it's always good to
even
check.
us, you guys, we're going through it over and over, like, okay, it could be there. Okay, things could be there. Things, just where are we getting our toxins?
It's a big deal. You know, we don't have a microwave at our house, and I know that makes it sound really weird, but I use a toaster oven. I'm big at the
I don't
toaster.
have a microwave either. We're like the old school naturopathic doctors.
I know, I know.
The
Lots
kids
of,
get so triggered.
I know. They're like, somebody gave me this kit for my birthday. I can't use the kit because we don't have a microwave, Mom. I'm like, go to your dad's work and use the kit. I don't care. But I just never felt like I needed one. But that's a big area of exposure when you heat up something that's like a frozen meal kind of thing. So say you have a frozen pot pie or whatever, like that container that's supposed to go in the microwave very often has a plastic lining on it. So just be aware of that and just switch out the container. It can go into Pyrex or something like that and then go in. I think you're supposed to cover it, and some of the Pyrex covers could melt in the microwave, so be careful of
That's
that.
right.
But right, definitely don't put the
You don't have
cover,
to cover it. You could cover it with a plate, but
cover it with a
you
plate.
definitely don't want to do what my dad, I'm always with the personal stories, but things crack me up like out in the world, what's going on. Like at one point, my dad was making bacon and it had hormel. I mean, there's many parts of the equation, this conversation that I wish were different, but he pulled out and he put the hormel bacon that was in plastic on both sides and it was microwavable. So he
Oh, it
microwaved
comes
and
that way.
cooked the bacon in the plastic because it's neater. And then he like peeled it out and like served it to the kids for breakfast. And I was like, uh, and the kids kind of were laughing because the kids are like, Mom
Oh,
literally is
she's not gonna.
freaking out right now.
You
And
try
I
to be
want to
polite,
stay
but
nice.
you're
Like,
also like,
I was like, Dad, can we like deconstruct what's happening?
um,
My microwave
yes.
bacon.
And so some of these plastics, those hard plastics, some people are asking questions about the coffee makers
Yeah.
having plastic in them. Honestly, I wish I could find an all stainless steel one. I've looked, I've really tried. One of the very worst things though, like a drip coffee maker with that hard plastic is probably much better than the pods. The pods is one of the worst things that people do. Those pods are scary. They are lined with plastic. There's some metals there. You're pouring boiling water through that thing. So, and I
The
know,
hotel we just stayed at, where
yeah,
the new ones are like not pods, but they're like the filter and they're using
yes,
the badly wrapped coffee and then you sit it on a plastic tray and you
yeah,
run the hot water through because
yeah.
tea bags have also traditionally been a place where there can be a lot of plastic
Mhm.
contaminant. So the tea bag industry, or they're trying to clean that up too. But I was just looking at it like I really wanted coffee and I wanted to we had a really early morning and I was like, there's no way I could make this for Garrett.
You
Never.
know, okay, I know I probably wouldn't drink it, but I'll tell you that really sweet bread maker in Italy handed me an espresso. In it was honestly, you all, one of those little plastic cups they give you at the dentist office that's clear and has the lines on it to like swish, whatever you have swish in your mouth. So it is not meant for hot beverages at all. And he handed it to me and I just had to drink it to be polite. So that was like the worst toxic plastic exposure I've had in years and years and years, probably in 10 years, was just because I had to, so you make these choices, but I don't drink out of disposable water bottles. It's really, really rare. I told you just recently how I did drink out of one really fast in the sauna because they handed me one. And I was telling my son, drink it super fast because we can't let it get hot because it was really cold. They handed it to us. So every once in a while you have to do that, especially when you're traveling. Dehydration is a big deal, but every time I do, it's just the taste of it is just striking and not great. So we do the best we can here. I think another area in the research that was surprising to me, and we're going to do more of this in the anti-inflammatory protocol too, is salt. So think about that. Salt is this kind of scratchy molecule, right? Same with sugar. They all come in these bags. They all come in a plastic bag, right? So when you're buying those things, we might want to go back to trying to buy them out of the paper that was kind of like, you know, stacked that way. And then maybe when we buy them, what I do is I put them in big glass jars as soon as I get them home, because I think squishing those things around and pouring out of them, like every time I cook, if I squish the plastic container of my sea salt around, I'm probably getting more of these microplastics in our food. Whereas if I just have it in a glass container, that's what I do. So I think that's a good strategy, is having a lot of containers. So everything that comes in your house in plastic, you just change it right when you get to your house. That's a really good thing. Body wash and shampoo and glass, you can find these things like without a doubt. They're more expensive, and a lot of them are fillable now. Now they have bars and pods and all kinds of things out there because these are real problems that people are looking for solutions. You know, they have reusable bags for storage. These things exist. We just, you know, educate ourselves more on them. So we have some resources for this too. There is a resource guide in our membership site too. If you're a member, go in there. There's a resource guide. Um, any other questions on this? I mean, I think that's a good start. So we know that these things could be causing real problems. And we also know that there's a lot to do about it. So avoidance is one, and then improving detox is another, a really, really big deal. And especially taking into account your lungs here, because sometimes when Hillary and I are doing detoxes, you know, we're focused on other organs of elimination, like your skin, like we do a whole skin one. GI, we do a whole GI one. So when we're talking about this, we really want to think about lungs, and I found it absolutely incredibly interesting that one of the research studies, and this is where we're talking about like we can see tidbits in the research and we can connect the dots just based on clinical experience, etc., but it's not clear to everyone. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is that they were talking about N-acetylcysteine, which is NAC. Hillary and I mean, do you think we have the vast majority of our fertility clients on NAC? Probably.
I mean, yes.
I
And the vast majority of, anytime we're using it for detox,
we always have,
for
yeah.
fire recovery, it's
Mhm.
kind of invaluable for COVID. Um,
So
lung
we,
recovery, it works in many, many things.
yeah, so it's an interesting molecule because we don't find it to be toxic and have issues when used in pill form. That's what we're using it in pill form. In the hospital, they'll give it in IV if someone has a acetaminophen toxicity or other, you know, you ate a strange mushroom and you're having liver toxicity. It is part of protocol in hospital because it's so nice and protective for lung tissue. I mean, sorry, for liver tissue. So we're talking about it for lungs in our anti-inflammatory protocol, sort of targeted a little bit at the plastics. But for you all, if you're trying to get pregnant, there was a really cool link for NAC and protecting ovaries from the damage from microplastics, which we already established that the microplastics could bring you to fibrosis, which is definitely contributing. If you have fibrosis in your ovaries, that's contributing to low ovarian reserve. Um, that is just by definition, right? Those cells are dead. It's like now a stagnant, kind of like a scar. So I think that's important to think about. So I like NAC to just think about, you know, we have a lot of tools, but I just wanted to mention that one because it's really accessible to people. There is a lot of research for ovaries out there. It's very obvious. And it was linked, you know, in a study. So I like that idea.
And
So
NAC is a really interesting one. In California, we nebulize it sometimes too. So if someone's had wildfire exposure, or I mean, not it's not just California anymore. Um, Smoke exposure, you can also nebulize it where you're doing a breathing treatment with NAC. NAC is one of those sort of
It's
miracle
smells a little
detoxers.
funky. Yeah, people get it in IV, people nebulize it. It's a great one.
And
So,
we mostly IV glutathione out in the world, not in a hospital, but NAC is the precursor to glutathione, which is our most potent antioxidant. So that is the way that it is functioning, that you're pushing, like for somebody like Kara that's not a great detoxer, and then they're exposed to a high amount of toxin, you give her more oral NAC and cysteine, which is an amino acid, and her glutathione levels rise. So the body's
and,
naturally detoxing.
and I can tell, like I have more energy. I'll get up earlier in the morning. I'll have less headaches. I can see that in myself as a difference. Of course, this research and this product didn't even exist when I was trying to get pregnant. So, I mean, let's use what we have is our attitude is like we have so much, we know so much. We just need to match it with the person, like match it with that specific woman, and you can affect great change here. So I hope that was not as scary of a discussion as like I can take a little bit of action here and know that that's just like the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more you can do. We'll keep talking about it. And we don't typically give dosages because we are doctors. So a dose is like a very specific recommendation. That's very it's sort of our, it's a thing you just can't really do because I don't know like how big is this person? Do they have other
So we do,
issues? You know
this,
what I mean?
this person does work with us, so we can,
We're
we'll,
gonna, yeah, you
yeah,
write us in spruce and we'll give you a dose. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.